sorry. It's for your own good.
One of the most compelling characters from Gen V wasn't even supposed to be a single person. Jordan Lee was supposed to be a set of twins, and not a bi-gender Asian soup. Her brother was going to be called Mark, and we're thanking God for keeping us safe from yet another generic white person name entering this universe. But in all seriousness, Jordan Lee has become one of the best explorations of gender fluidity in recent memory, and all of it is down to their superpower. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the anatomy of Jordan Lee and doing our best to break down how all of it works, including whether they really need to clench their butt to make it happen, like Dean Cypher claims they do. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. They were assigned male at birth, Jordan's original sex, and how they awaken their power. Like 99.9% of the superhero community in the boys' universe, Jordan Lee wasn't born with powers. They were injected with Compound V shortly after their birth, and their gender-shifting ability didn't become active until they were on their way to adolescence. This means that Jordan's original and fixed sex was male, which is quite an interesting thing, considering they prefer to use their female form more. We've seen London Thor as Jordan Lee way more than Derek Love, but Derek is technically what the quote-unquote original Jordan would have looked like without V. This is kind of apparent in the way they behave as well, because Jordan's favorite activities are playing PlayStation and eating Olive Garden breadsticks. Those are two things that are generally associated with people whose assigned sex at birth was male, and Jordan certainly has big man energy. But it was only when they went exploring those energies that their V kicked in, and they discovered they could become a female as well. When Jordan was a kid, he had a crush on this girl called Ruby. He tried kissing her one day, and she knocked his tooth out with her Black Noir lunchbox. The next day, Jordan became able to shift their gender at will, which caused his parents to despair deeply. He became much better at blending in with the interacting with girls. He had a string of girlfriends after Ruby knocked him out. He grew to the point that he was able to try on prom dresses with her before graduation. And generally speaking, Jordan's emotional spectrum was broadened quite significantly. This wasn't okay with their parents though, because they had no idea that their son would one day also become their daughter. Jordan's parents were quite patriarchal. They grew up with the idea that their son would conquer the world with his gifts. So, when Jordan's gender-swapping ability spawned itself from a broken tooth, they were disappointed in him. It's quite ironic, considering they were the ones who shot them up with V in the first place. But such is hypocrisy. One of Jordan's earliest girlfriends would also insist that they show up in their male form whenever they were together, because that's how binary thinking works. You're either one thing or the other. And Jordan was the exception that proved it wrong. They started resenting their parents as the years rolled on, because not only did they have the pressure to succeed and excel at all things, they were expected to do it as a boy. Jordan let that second one slide in spectacular fashion during the first season of Gen V, but the first took a while for them to do. It was only after they confronted their parents during a VOT event that Jordan even became fully comfortable with themselves. Up until that point, there was always this element of, I want my parents to be proud of me within them. But after that day, their gender swapping has become more natural and frequent. Now that we've mentioned all that we needed to mention with regards to Jordan's sex, we can go beyond this gender issue and look at their powers. Because let's be honest, it would have been quite lame if all you could do was go from male to female and back again. But Jordan is a main character in Gen V, and therefore the plot demands they have greater powers. Those powers are, ironically enough, locked into their gender swapping ability, because male Jordan and female Jordan have two different sets of powers. It just furthers the dual nature of their character and their path through life. But this is an anatomy video, so we won't be getting into all of that. Let's talk about Jordan Lee's powers now that we've commented on their base ability, shall we? They become a man to attack. Jordan's male powers explained. Dean Cypher is a total bag of pricks, but there is one thing he said during the first hero optimization class that gave us a pause. How exactly does Jordan's swapping ability manifest itself? Do they just clench their butt and they're ready to go? Or, as Cypher so eloquently puts it, or is there more to this ability than that unconscious trigger? Well, one of the major themes of Gen V Season 2 is for characters to understand what makes them evolve as superheroes. Cypher specifically started the hero optimization class to make the selected students understand their own powers powers better, all for the sake of joining Vought's army of supes. He says that the more people understand about their abilities, the better they'll be at using them. And he uses Marie as an example. She can control blood. But does she know exactly which component of blood she's manipulating? Is it plasma? Is it iron? Or can she manipulate the blood cells within someone's body? And why does she have to cut herself to use her powers? Isn't there a better activation condition out there? Marie had never thought about these things. And in that regard, Cypher turns out to be a pretty good teacher, actually. But this isn't about Marie's anatomy. This is about Jordan's anatomy. And we think that the activation condition depends on whether Jordan wants to do something active or passive. What do we mean by that? Well, to put it simply, it means that when Jordan wants to actively take action in any kind of scenario, especially in a fight, like landing punches or something, then he assumes his male form. Jordan's male form is quite suited for active offense because it's extremely durable and powerful. Jordan has withstood immense amounts of punishment and quite successfully, might we add. The main evidence for their absurd physical strength in their male form comes from their fight with Golden Boy. Golden Boy was supposed to be the absolute strongest supe in all of Godolkin, even putting his blasting abilities to the side. His raw strength alone was catching up with Homelander. Jordan was able to tank not only his blasts, but also his blows, and land quite a few of their own. They're generally the last person we need to worry about during a battle, because that's how durable their body is. They were able to escape Elmira without suffering much physical damage. And Elmira is basically Auschwitz for supes. There was nothing that wasn't done to them, and Jordan survived all of it without a scratch. Now, of course, the story is different when it comes to massively overpowered individuals like Soldier Boy or Homelander himself. We'd have a hard time believing that Jordan could hold their own in a fistfight against heavyweights like them, but that's why their second set of abilities exists in the first place. Jordan's near invulnerable body is meant to close the gap and land massive hits to incapacitate enemies. They usually only use their male form to land punches or block incoming attacks on their weaker allies. Their physical strength is for offense because of the raw strength they unleash, but it isn't the only way they can deal damage. Jordan's abilities in their female form are just as strong, but their purpose is a little different. Where male Jordan's ability is meant to close the gap, female Jordan's ability is meant to create distance. And as crazy as it sounds, that lines up perfectly with how their mental state changes from gender to gender. As a male, Jordan tends to be more assertive and more forward in taking action. I mean, they confess their love to Marie as a male, and most of the things that they've done where they take a leadership position has been as a male too. It's when they want to be more passive and defensive of themselves that they switch to their female form. And the best example of that is that one party from Gen V Season 1 where Jordan quote-unquote embarrasses their parents. They switch from male to female in front of prospective investors because they can't tolerate their parents' hypocritical views anymore. And that's pretty reflective of female Jordan's powers. If we have to talk about this in video game terms, then male Jordan is an attacking type character, and female Jordan is a supporting type character. The former is a close quarters combatant, and the latter is a mid to long range combatant. That doesn't make female Jordan's powers any weaker. It just means that they come from a different place and have a different purpose. Now that we've cleared the air on that, let's get to the second set of powers Jordan Lee has, because they're arguably even more fascinating than super strength and durability. They become a woman to protect. Jordan's female powers explain. When they're in their female form, Jordan Lee manifests the ability to blast projectiles that look a lot like Invisible Woman's force fields. In fact, it's quite possible that it's the same ability, and that Jordan is manipulating some sort of force field to attack their enemies. Well, it's not exactly attack as much as it is keeping them away, because if you look at the footage carefully, Jordan primarily uses their force fields to create a stalemate, or an escape window. Like we mentioned a few seconds ago, if male Jordan is good at offense, then female Jordan is great at defense. And every time Jordan busts out their force fields, it's to create distance and hopefully knock the other person out, instead of guaranteeing knockout punches. This ability probably manifested as a result of Jordan's habit of pushing people away when they get too close, because every single cold social interaction we've seen them have has been in their female form. Jordan's entire life got messed up because they started moving around as both male and female in the first place. So from an unconscious perspective, it would make sense that their female form's abilities have massive stay-away energy. In that same fight with Golden Boy, we saw Jordan utilize their two forms quite seamlessly, switching between attack and defense, and keeping the strongest individual in Godolkin University at bay. Not many supes have the power to go toe-to-toe with Luke Reardon, but Jordan did it by cleverly switching between offense and defense, and even using their defense for offense. Usually, their force field ability kicks in when they want to slam away an enemy, enemy that's coming at them. They can also switch it up and use it as a battering ram. After distracting an enemy, Jordan can get in real close and blow them several meters away, which gives them ample time to execute their next strategy. Jordan can also control the intensity of their force field blasts because we've seen them letting off a few non-lethal ones in Season 1 of Gen V, but the blast she hit Kate with in the first episode of Season 2 had enough power behind it to break open her skull. Jordan reacted on instinct because they saw Kate trying to touch Marie, and Jordan knows that once Kate touches you, it's game over. They wanted to protect Marie with all their might, and this created a force field powerful enough to turn Kate's head into a punctured ketchup bottle. But there is an offset for this ridiculous defensive power, and that's Jordan's reduced physical offense. They gain speed and dexterity as a female, that's for sure. In Season 1, we see Jordan ducking and weaving through a near point-blank range eye laser blast, but unlike their male form, where damaging them is extremely difficult, their female form is more vulnerable to attacks in general. Maybe that's one of the reasons Jordan's defensive power is creating force fields, because without their invulnerability, those fields will act as shields. And if their female form is their support form, as we've speculated in this video, then it makes sense that they'd be faster in it, because that facilitates escape. In the end, what Jordan Lee has is a unique combination of the perfect defense and the perfect offense. As a male, they can probably punch out walls, and as a female, they can blast people into those walls before getting away from them. But the act of changing genders itself must take a lot out of Jordan, especially in a fight, because we see them switching genders way too much. If they were truly invulnerable as a male, then why do they switch to their defensive form when engaging an enemy? Surely, it's more sensible to stay on the attack, right? Now, yes. One reason for this can be that the natural flow of battle switches between attacking and defending. If Jordan's conversations are still purely unconscious, then they have no control over which gender they inhabit at any given moment. But that's not true, because we know Jordan can control their conversions. So why do they keep switching, even if a situation would go better for them if they stuck to one group of powers? Well, thought occurs at a speed faster than the human body can process. And maybe it's not that Jordan chooses to change forms, it's that they have no choice but to do it. It would make sense for Jordan's ridiculous damage dealing in their male form to drain so much of their stamina that they have to switch to keep fighting. Think of it like those bars you have to fill up to execute special attacks in video games. After a burst of offensive attacks as male Jordan, that bar gets depleted, and so Jordan has to switch to female to use their new stamina bar, which is attached to this transformation. Then they use force fields to attack, while their super strength replenishes, and once that's done, they switch back, and on it goes. One needs a highly adaptable battle style to be able to keep up with and fully utilize such a diverse range of abilities, and that's something Jordan definitely has. Out of most of the supes we've seen in Gen V, they're the only one who seems to take combat seriously, because Jordan is one of, if not the best fighter, on the God U campus. They know their strengths and weaknesses, and it's possible that the switching gender mid-battle is just a tactic to throw their opponent off their game. But we can't dismiss the possibility of that attack bar thingamajig we just mentioned, because it would explain the frequency of Jordan's changes, and those changes themselves could pose an issue if Jordan's up against an enemy fast enough to outpace the transformation. The delay between Jordan's transformation from male to female is barely a second long, but for characters like Homelander, a second is equivalent to an infinity. If he wanted to, Homie could embarrass A-Train thoroughly on the track. He flew alongside a plane for God's sakes, and those things are fast, we tell you. So the best case scenario for Jordan would be a world where they don't have to switch to use both their powers. That would remove any sort of time constrictions and give them access to the ultimate defense and offense at the same time. But is that even possible? Well, can Jordan switch their powers between genders? Will they be able to use both together? Our answer to those questions is a yes, but with a giant asterisk and a footnote that says, depending on whether that's evolutionary path that their body takes them on. The reason we brought up that hero optimization class is not just to make fun of God U's gladiatorial mindset, which it embodies disgustingly well. It's also to tell you that every single person in that class is about to level in a way you can't even imagine. Cypher might be a racial supremacist, but the one thing he probably isn't lying about is the fact that every suit can level up. Most of them are usually so distracted by sex and violence that they don't wait and reflect on their powers so they can fine-tune it. And Cypher singles out Jordan in this regard, not just to embarrass them, but to also tell us, the viewers, that we haven't seen them reach their full potential yet. And Cypher referring to their gender switching in particular was important, because his words implied that the trigger isn't as simple as clenching one's butthole and just making the switch happen. Marie also thinks that only by cutting herself or seeing an open wound can she manipulate blood. But as we've seen from the trailers for Gen V Season 2, that's not the case. Soon, she'll realize that she can control blood regardless of whether it's spilling out of someone or not, and she'll be able to move other people through sheer willpower. So what will Jordan's evolution look like? Well, that's the reason we've spent so much time talking about their mentality when they're inhabiting a certain gender, because if we're right about this, then Jordan's switching is more based on how they're feeling than what they're doing. It would make a lot of sense for an indestructible body to manifest itself when one feels like going on a relentless assault, and it would also make sense for a force field ability to manifest itself if one had the strong desire to repel people. If emotional states are what trigger Jordan's switches and powers, then it's possible that by concentrating and controlling their emotions better, they'd be able to transfer their sex-specific powers to the other one, or even use both of them together. If Jordan's powers are inextricably linked to their bigender status, then this might be impossible. But if they exist on a foundational level and are only expressed through a specific gender's lens, because Jordan chooses to do so, then that's a whole different ballgame. If they evolve as a result of the hero optimization classes, then we suspect Jordan might be able to use blasts in their male form and become invulnerable in their female form. Heck, there's also the possibility that they'll be able to use both of those powers at the same time, and the gender switching will become detaching from their abilities. We don't know enough about Jordan's powers to say this with certainty, but they wouldn't have been put in hero optimization if they weren't getting a significant boost by the end of this season. While Marie's evolution has already been hinted at, and we discussed our thoughts about Kate's upgrades in her anatomy video, which you should also check out, this is the only thing that makes sense to us with regards to where Jordan's powers are headed, because it's perfect for them. If you combine the ultimate offense with the ultimate defense, you get the ultimate physical specimen. And Jordan Lee has had the potential to become that specimen since the first episode of Gen V. This is just what we think their powers will look like by the time everything is said and done. But speaking of things being said and done, marvelous verdict. That's all we had for you guys, so thanks for watching this video. Let us know your thoughts on our exploration of Jordan's anatomy in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more boys adjacent content.